All right, here we go. It's session number 3 of the free 10-week virtual course of Get It Right. And before we start, just a reminder, this Thursday will be a presentation given by NFL referee Sean Hockley on the 5 traits of officiating. We will not have a webinar Saturday morning because of the holiday, so we'll move that to this Thursday. Again, NFL referee Sean Hockley, so make sure you tune in and listen to that great presentation. And with that,
Okay, we're going to talk a little about holding here. We're going to go here into looking at the point of attack. Again, this whole notion of holding, using arms, hands, a leg to hook, block, clamp, grasp, encircle, or hold an opponent in an effort to restrain the opponent. And this has evolved over the years. I remember back in 1971 when I last had pads on, you weren't even allowed to use your hands for anything. And so all that's changed. So let's kind of, we'll run through this one in a step through fashion. That guy starts going in motion, the ball gets snapped, and we're going to watch this guy right here and this guy over here. So you can see that they've got, he's got his right hand stretched out outside of the blue player's frame, and he's got his left hand over his frame there. And then this guy's going to run up through this gap. And you see white 66 is going to wind up pulling that blue player down. And let's go ahead and run that through play through here. So we have holding on the right and some holding on the left. Then I want to take a little bit of a closer look at this. We'll swing around. And we're going to watch this guy here on the end. So clearly there's a lot of grabbing and fighting and holding going on there, and he kind of ran the guy down to the ground. I want to take a look at this guy right here, and especially what this guy, Blue 55, does. So there's the contact, and then by the time the runner's going through, Blue 55 is starting to come over. And the question that we wind up raising here is, did this white player really restrain that blue player? And when we talk to some of our teams, we tell the defensive guys, show me something. Show me that you're being held. Show me that you're being restrained. But right now, this guy's just dancing. They're looking for, who's going to take him to the prom. So something like that, if we didn't throw a flag on that, that may not be a bad thing. If that blue player, that blue team wants to complain about it, I want to see more out of that defensive player to figure out if he's been restrained. This I stopped this at a pretty good time here. You could see this guy is really keeping 51 from engaging there. 51's not even turned. He doesn't have an opportunity to go after that guy. So clearly there was something going on right there. So definite flag right here. You can have a questionable call over here. By rule, he did have his hands outside the frame. If you wanted to call that, you could certainly justify it. But I would really want to see more out of that defensive guy. I mean, shoot, he's not even breaking loose until after the runner's gone. I don't know. I would simply want to see more on that. My opinion. Okay. Let's go into some pass protection here. I talked to some of my white hat friends on this one because this one's a little bit tricky. You're going to see, you'll see some action over here on our right side. So what's happening here is blue 78 is actually hooking his arm underneath the right arm of white 77 here. And that's holding him up enough so that quarterback can get that quick pass off. Put this in playthrough. Back it up again. Put this in about the position that white hat would be in. And that's what he would see. So again, this is one of those issues where did that hold occur? You know, we could slow this down and zoom in, get a little bit closer. You can see that he's got that arm hooked in there. We can swing around a little bit and get a look from this angle as well to see that he's got him hooked. But with that ball being thrown right away, did that really affect the play or not? Now that's that star defensive end, like the coach you had on Saturday that the kid committed to UCLA, you know, maybe that guy would have gotten there quick enough to affect that play. So process that in your mind. It's an obvious hold. Did it affect the play? So if there's ever an opportunity for a late flag, this is one of those to figure out what may have happened on that. Go to grab and turn here. Umpires, I'm just impressed with what y'all are able to do when you see all this stuff happening here in front of you. Let me go back to the original view. And what we're going to see here is this lineman wrapping his arm around this player here. We have the point of attack happening here. This runner is going to come right up through this little gap. And then that's when that blue player then turns around. And maybe this blue defensive lineman here has a pretty good technique for, you know, spinning out of a block or something like that. You know, if he does try to do that technique, he's not doing that good of a job here on this one. Let's do a playthrough on it because he is held up a little bit. The runner's already past him, and then he spins around to try to get start going after him. Referees might be able to help a little bit on this one. So that runner's already going through, and now that defensive lineman is starting to break off and go. Now we're going to go for an easy one here. Look at defensive holding. We'll do a playthrough on this. Guy gets torched. And then anytime we see those defensive guys get torched like that, and they wind up in a chase mode, yeah, that's a good indication that something's liable to happen. So there's that nice pull, slow him down. You know, trying to affect that pass. Now, of course, the way we've got this particular one set up, that's when the jersey is being pulled. We have a second pass. There's a backward pass followed by a forward pass. That forward pass hasn't happened yet. So that's something that we need to watch for as well. When you see that happen, throw the flag. When you realize that it's a pass play, when did that occur? So we could have either holding which is what we have in this case. But if that ball is in the air when that hold occurs, now we're going to have defensive pass interference. So you have two potential outcomes there. Ball's in the air right now. He's since let him go, but we'll still have holding on that. Late flag on that. See what the offense wants to do as a result of the play. I think this guy actually catches the ball. That's our long pass play on the sideline. So as you start looking at holding, there's a couple of different sources you can look at. The coaches want to know really what happened on it. They're getting more sophisticated, and actually, I think we're doing our part as well to go beyond the whole idea of just holding. You know, it was a grab and restrict. It was a hook and restrict. It was a jerk and restrict. It was a takedown. It was a tackle. You know, he's grabbed the hold of the jersey and held on. They need to know that. Sometimes they just want to make sure that they feel confident that we're calling what we actually saw. So there's a little bit of gamesmanship on the coach's part there. But be ready to explain exactly what that hold was. So this is a little bit shorter tonight as compared to the previous couple of weeks. You know, holding has got all kind of flavors to it. I'm sure you all have your own stories about what was holding, what was not. And then talking to the players, if you see holding that was not affecting the play, but at least let them know that you saw that they were holding, and that could have resulted in a flag if the play had come their direction. Any questions, any comments?
Yeah, there in the chat room, there's one. Let me pull it up for you real quick. I don't know if you can see it. Let me get in here.
It says, is a flat hand under the breastplate to maneuver a defender to a hold if there's no actual grasp?
If the way that I've seen most people handle that is if you get those hands inside the frame and you're actually grabbing the jersey, now we're really watching to see what that defensive guy is trying to do. If we'll tell the offensive players, keep your feet moving. If you can stay squared in front of that defensive guy, and you've got your hands inside the frame and you've got jersey, we're calling that a legal block. But then that too is when we're talking to the defensive side saying, you better be trying to do a swim move or break contact. Show us that you're being restrained. If you get your feet moving quicker than that offensive guy and you're not squared up, you're probably going to get a good holding call right there. But yeah, if again, what we tell them, what a lot of places tell them, if they're face to face and that offensive guy is inside the frame and has jersey, we may not be calling that.
Okay, thank you. Van Romero is one of our seasoned umpires. Do you want to talk a little bit about our philosophy on that, Van, if you don't mind?
Well, you mean philosophy in general, or?
Yeah, as far as, you know, there's grabbing on every play, but what constitutes a hold for us at the high school level here in New Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, obviously point of attack. I agree with everything that was said, that you talk to the player who's holding, who's not at the point of attack. You know, my rule of thumb is if you look at the statistics of holding, there's usually about 4 holding calls a game. The referee usually calls 1. So my philosophy is I've got to find the three biggest holds that are going to occur during that game. I mean, that's the mindset that I have, is that there's only going to be 2 or 3 holds that are big enough to make a difference that I'm going to call. So it's not that I'm not looking for something of, well, maybe that was a hold. What I'm looking for is something that the flag jumps out of my pocket when I see it. Because otherwise it's probably not a hold. So, and when I'm at clinics and talking to people, that's what I tell new umpires is look for the top 2 or 3 biggest holds that whole game.
Great, thank you. And we have Leonard Longhorn. He's a regional signer. You want to talk a little bit about how you deal with coaches sending in video?
All right, kind of like what Van said, we don't get the best film, so it's got to really jump out and be an obvious hold. So most cameras are at the top of the, stands shooting down. You're not going to see that hand, slide against underneath the breastplate or the shoulder pads or things like that, but you're going to see the, the grasp of the jersey and the really pull and hook and turns and grab and restricts. So I always tell my guys, don't be too technical on that stuff because, if you can obviously see it in film, then, we can justify it. But if you get too technical, a lot of that stuff, we don't get end zone views and, we don't have the 4 HD cameras in high school. So we're not going to see a lot of things you see on Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you.
Listening to Leonard and Van, they're talking about being selective. You hear coaches and everybody, 95% of the plays, the entire game, holding, and these guys are talking about picking out the top 3 in the entire game. That shows patient flag. That shows, understanding the play, the philosophy. That's good stuff, especially for the beginner, intermediate official to learn that philosophy.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for giving us that input, Van and Leonard. Really appreciate clarification on what you guys see at the umpire position and at the signer position, because Leonard is also an umpire. Bob, do you have anything else?
No, that's all I have for this evening.
Dennis, when's our next webinar? What's coming up, please?
All right. So like I said before, on Thursday, we're going to have Sean Hockley give a presentation on, I believe he calls it the 5 traits of officiating within the crew. We're not going to have one on Saturday because of the holiday. And then we'll go another week. And on the following Saturday, the 11th, we will have a presentation by Jim Carlpaw. How do you pronounce his last name?
Corporate.
Yeah.
Corporate.
Yeah, he's an ACC side judge. He's also a Division III supervisor of officials. And he'll be giving a presentation on what he calls "Don't Be That Guy." And I think Leonard's Longhorn might have sat in on it. I haven't heard this one yet, but did you say this was a pretty good presentation also, Bob, right? You've heard it.
Yeah. Next Tuesday on the 7th, we'll talk about blocking the back. Do blocking the back. We'll talk about free blocking zone, watching the entire block, that sort of stuff.
Right. Okay. So again, Thursday, 6 p.m. Next Tuesday, 5 p.m. blocking the back, and the following Saturday, the 11th at 6 p.m. And that's what we have for the next week and a half coming up. Appreciate everyone's time. Enjoy the week. Enjoy your holiday. If we don't talk to you by then.
Appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Thank you, Bob.
You bet. Take care. Bye now.